Right, this is my first test with a new microphone set up. I hope it's going to work for us. This is one of two videos to do with using a calculator on working with data on a Casio type calculator. The first one will be one of these two calculators, which is the 82 or the 85. The other video will be using the more advanced FX991, and I'll come back to that one later. So what we're going to do is we're going to get as much information as we can out about this data. Sorry if the cat in the background is annoying you. The sorts of things we can find out are things like what is the total, how many values do we have, what's the mean, and also what is the standard deviation. Unfortunately, these formal calculators don't give you the sums of x squareds. So let's get ourselves started, and I'll take you through some of my basic setups when I'm doing a calculator setup for doing these problems. First thing, I've turned it on. I'm in a fairly standard mode. It's working in degrees and doing math IO, the fancy type. To change so that it knows I'm going to work with statistics, I change the mode. And you see three options: comp, stat, and table. Well, this time I'm doing stats. And this data, the actual data values, if you remember, are actually the time spent in minutes, not the frequency. The frequency tells me how many of each of these values I've got. So we're doing a one variable calculation. These other options, all the things to do with using AXBX, that's linear regression, which does come up in other topics. And these are other forms of doing equations that it could be. So we could have a polynomial, a quadratic, a logarithmic, exponential, a power in x, which is not based upon a power of x, and also a reciprocal function. But the ones we're really focused with are the top two, and this video is about one of our calculations. So I select option 1. Now this calculator has already been set up. I've got my frequency for a frequency table. And any time I come into any test when I'm doing statistics, one of the things I like to do is shift, set up. And if you scroll down, you get an option for stat. That stat option is purely to turn frequency on or off. So if I turn it off, I've got no frequency column when I'm putting data in. Go and do it again, shift, set up, scroll down a page and go into the stat options and turn my frequency on. That means I can put in things like this frequency table. So the first thing I'm going to type in is all my numbers, or the data values, 35, 36, 37, 38, and then go across and put in my frequencies. So my frequencies in this case are, just move the mouse out of the way, 3, 17, 29, and 34. I do actually get all my values in there. This, you can actually see them, they're quite small. Now this is the worrying part. To say that you've finished entering your data, you actually press the all clear button, this AC button. Little bit weird, a little bit uncomfortable when you do it. You think you're going to get rid of your table, but that's how you tell it you've completed entering your data. So I do AC. Now a little clue that I'm in stat mode is there's the stat option up here. And also when we get a 0 like this, generally means you're in stat mode. Okay. To access the stat functions, if you have a look down here on top of the 1, there's a little stat menu item there, and to activate it you do shift stat. And we've got options here getting some of the standard data out. I could go and have a look at my data. Vars is what we're going to be using in a minute. We've got the sums as well, which means we might actually get the sums of squares. Yes, we do. So this sums of squares value, I can select it by getting a 1 and press equals, and you'll notice I get the 114504 for me. I can do the same thing again. If I go into option 3 sums and do number 2, that's my sum of x's, and that gives me 3082, and that we've got on the screen. So we can actually calculate these two values ourselves, then we can go off and calculate our variance. Notice this is not variance. We need to take, to do variance, we need to take this value and divide it by 83. Okay, this is not variance. Each of these needs to be divided by the number of items again. This is an intermediate value for calculating variance, for calculating regression. Let's go and see if we can find the mean. So shift stat. In var, we get the option of the number of values. The mean of those values, number 2, 37.13, which I have over here. I can go into the option stat and do variance. Now, the two things, n would give us our 83, the number of items. We've got 2 sigma values here. They are both standard deviation. This is standard deviation for population. Population being every possible time that somebody could have spent doing this task. Everybody has been considered. This is actually a sampling one, and it's generally a little bit bigger than the delta one. But the one for the exam that you need is that 3. And when you do it, you get 0.861, same value we had here. The other one takes into account that because you've only got some of the data, like I said, it will be a little bit bigger. And rather than dividing by n, what you do for this SXX, what you do is divide through by n minus 1. And this just says, I have not got all of the data, I've got a sample. And you notice it's slightly larger. You don't need to normally know that in most exams. Just have a quick look at the other options, min and max. You can find the minimum value, of course it's 35. Stat, max 5. 2, find the max 38. If we have a look in the type, change the type of the calculations we're doing. Press cancel from that and do shift stat again. If my data was wrong, I can go back and edit it. So that's the stat functions for one variable calculations on a Casio FX85 or the 83. Just stop.